Hey guys, TheAirsoftTech here and welcome back. Today we're going to be kicking off our TSG build video series. This will be part 1 of 3 covering everything we're going to be doing at TSG. So I decided to split these videos up for the obvious reason. I didn't want to make a long 30-minute video of me just rambling on about TSG stuff. I wanted to actually make them segmented and digestible. So in part 1, we'll actually be covering some basic TSG concepts, where it comes from and theoretically how it's supposed to work and why no one hasn't done it until now. And then we'll be covering the base gun and the parts that I'll be using to achieve a TSG build. And then I'll also, predict some results based upon the parts that I'll be using. And then in part 2, what we'll be doing is actually all the fun stuff. We'll be installing all the parts. We'll be doing all the fine-tuning necessary to get this gun to function smoothly. And then the third video, what we'll be doing is actually doing a little bit more fine-tuning and doing some troubleshooting of things that I just expect that will need troubleshooted, like feeding at a TSG build or actually getting the FPS and joule output right. And then once we get all that stuff done, we'll be doing some results-based testing. We'll be testing out our FPS, our joule output with different BBs, and our RPS, our range, and our accuracy. And that'll be the third video. So I hope you guys are as excited as I am to kick off this TSG build project. So without waiting anymore, let's just go ahead and get started. So what is a TSG? A TSG is simply a triple sector gear. It has 3 sets of 5 teeth around the circumference of the sector gear. Now let's backtrack quite a lot. Your traditional sector gear has 1 sector of teeth, totaling 16 teeth, allowing you to take full advantage of the cylinder volume the way that these airsoft guns were designed nearly 30 years ago. So fast forward quite a bit from this point and you get to the DSG. Some brilliant techs years ago realized that what they could do is they could actually double the amount of sectors on the sector gear and half the amount of teeth on each sector, resulting in 8 teeth on opposing sides of the sector gear, creating the DSG. And that basically allowed us to double our cycle rate on our airsoft guns with the appropriately built system. And the DSG concept has pretty much been perfected. Sometime after that, somebody came up with the TSG design, and I don't know who originally designed the TSG. I don't know who originally thought of the idea. I just know who made this specific model, and we can get to that later. But the TSG concept was made. And for the longest time, ever since its creation, it was always thought of as a theoretical dream and a practical nightmare, just due to the so few amount of teeth in each sector gear and not being able to take advantage of as much of your volume in your cylinder as you could with a DSG or an SSG. So we always just kind of left it alone. We just kind of thought it was a fever dream and just kind of let it be its own theoretical thing. Well, recently, some techs that I know actually got the TSG concept working, and they got 300 FPS, and the highest rate of fire I saw was about 72 rounds per second, without hitting premature engagement, and obviously with a good FPS/joule output. So obviously, it's practical. Let's just actually get one working of my own. Now, I bought this TSG on Shapeways. It was designed by a tech named Maki. If you don't recognize the name there, it's probably just because I didn't pronounce it correctly. He is an awesome airsoft tech. He's got a really cool YouTube channel talking about all of his builds that he's done. He's done some really awesome DSG builds. And he had a really good presence on Airsoft Mechanics Forum when it was a thing. So anyway, I don't know if he was the original designer of the TSG concept. I just know that he designed this TSG and designed another one too. So there are 2 models that you can get on Shapeways. You can either get this model here, which is just the upper half that punches onto an SHS 18-1 or 16-1 sector gear lower, or you can get the full TSG that has the cutoff cam and everything, and all the tappet plate cams. It just doesn't have the axle, so you have to get an axle and punch it through. Theoretically, this is supposed to be more durable, and it makes sense. This is, you're going to be having SHS gears meshing with SHS gears, and that leaves really the weakest point, the 3D printed steel upper half of the TSG, meshing with the piston. So if you get the full TSG, you're going to have, you might have meshing problems with your gears that you'll be putting it into. So I would suggest, if you're going to do a TSG build, to go with the upper half like this. More than likely, it's just going to last you longer and cause you fewer headaches. So yeah, that is the TSG gear in a nutshell. One more real quick thing about the TSG. Now, those two different models, one obviously, this one here, you're only going to have a single cutoff cam. So if you do go with this model, you're going to absolutely have to go with an optical based MOSFET / trigger unit sensor that senses the actual sector gear teeth and when they stop to tell the system to kill switch on semi-auto. If you do buy the full model, you will have a triple sector gear cam down here that I didn't get for another reason, because I didn't think that it would be I didn't think it'd work as well. Now with that model, you could use the optical sensor, or you could try using a cutoff lever sensor, or you could try using the traditional cutoff lever. I just figured this would cause the least amount of headaches just for my MOSFET to try to sense the end of each sector as the sector gear rotates through those light bar sensors. And we'll get more into that over the parts that I'll be using in a second. So moving on to the base gun and the parts for this build. So I'll be going with as my base gun, I'll be going with the A&K NS15. It's about $130 on Airsoft GI, all metal construction, nice, okay feeling polymer here, comes with a foregrip, I don't care about that kind of stuff. But I did want a metal body, just because they're a lot nicer than plastic bodies, obviously. A couple other reasons why I wanted this gun. Stock, it comes with a 32 TPA neodymium motor. Awesome, that's exactly what I want to hear. The gearbox shell is probably strong enough to handle this kind of stress. I don't perceive this to be an extremely stressful build on the front of the gearbox shell, so if I radius it, hopefully that takes care of it. It's also an 8mm gearbox shell, so I can really easily throw in some modified ceramics, which is what I'm going to be using. And yeah, it comes with a metal one-piece hop-up chamber. So yeah, it's basically got everything I want. Nice and short, barrel's about 180 millimeters in length. So yeah, it's basically got everything I want. The full stock will allow me to accommodate a large enough battery and not have to run a battery pouch. So yeah, this should be the perfect gun for the TSG build. Alright, so here are the parts that I'll be using in this build. So this side of the table, I don't really plan on having to use these parts actually, because I think that the gearbox shell is going to be strong enough, though I did go ahead and buy a version 2 Lonex gearbox shell. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. And then I also bought a Lonex for M4 style hop-up chamber and a ball bearing spring guide. Now the reason I'm probably not going to need the ball bearing spring guide is because the A&K NS15 comes with a steel ball bearing spring guide. So probably won't be needing this or any of these parts in this category, but I've got them just in case I need them. Obviously I'll be using the triple sector gear with the SHS 16:1 ratio gears. I'll be using those right there. I've already obviously made my full gear, so that's done. I'll be actually going with a 3D printed tappet plate. This tappet plate was designed by Legacy Airsoft, or Ryan Fisher. He's the other podcast host on this channel. We've been friends for quite some time now, and him and I talked about designing a tappet plate. He did all the designing and I did all the manufacturing. So this is the tappet plate I'll be using. It is PLA with a 0.1 of layer height, so it's really, really high resolution. It's got a lot of wall thickness. I think I printed 5 layers of wall thickness on each side. So top, bottom, and the sides, it's got a lot of thickness to it. Flexes just a little bit, but I don't feel like it's going to break very easily. So hopefully this works well. If it doesn't, then I'm just going to probably use the stock tappet plate in the A&K NS15. But I will probably try different material as well, like PETG. This is PLA, like I said. PLA is a little more brittle than PETG, and PETG is a little bit more difficult to print, but I think I can do it. So moving on from that, I did actually have this set to the side because I didn't know the A&K NS15 came with a neodymium motor until I checked. So this is what I was going to use. I was going to build a Franken torque motor, 32 TPA with just a standard stock pinion, but I won't be needing that anymore. I'll be using an SHS 15-tooth steel rack piston. It's pretty much my go-to piston. It's fairly lightweight, and I can weight it if I want, which I probably will. I'll be going with a ZCI 200mm barrel. Not present here, I'll be using a Lonex 70-degree bucking flat hopped with this. I'll be using an SP150 garter spring. This is pretty much what everybody's been using when they get their TSG builds to work. It gets them about 300 FPS, which is a goal I'm happy with. And then I'll be going with the T238 MOSFET that you can find on AliExpress. This is basically a MOSFET that was originally intended for the gel blasters in Australia, but because the gel blaster is essentially an airsoft clone, then this should work with it as well. And the company that made this, also designed it for airsoft guns, so they do understand it's being used for this purpose. Basically, it's a gate tighten clone with an optical sensor, which is what you need when you use a TSG like this. So I'll be using that, and I'm super excited to test this one out. It'll be the first time I'm using the T238. A lot of people I know have been getting good results with it, so I'm excited to see what happens with me. And then I'll be using some modified ceramics. I do know there are better bearings out there that actually have better cage designs, but this is what I have on hand, and I think that I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on different bearings that I might not even have to use to the fullest extent. So I'm just going with some modified ceramics. I will be using a Lonex steel 8mm bushing underneath the spur, where most of the load tends to be on the gear train. And then finally, I'll be using Evike BAMF magazines, 190, 180 rounds in them. I've heard good things about them feeding high rate of fire guns. So those are the parts that I'll be using for this build. Alright, so now that I've laid all the parts out before you and laid out the whole scenario, let's talk about results that I'm expecting. So with all the parts I'm going with and the 11.1 volt LiPo that I'll be using, I should get about 40 to 42 rounds per second, and with the spring I'm using, I should get about 300 FPS. Now I know you guys want me to go faster, I know you guys want this to go 70 or 80 RPS, but for now, and I mean just for now, we're going to try to get a functional slow speed TSG system. And if I can get that working, then it should be very simple to just do a real quick motor change, swap out my 32 TPA motor for a 22 TPA motor, reshim my bevel to pinion contact, and then easily hit 70 RPS. But like I said, for now, we're going to go slow and we're going to get the system working before we try to push and shoot for any records. Alright guys, that's going to have to do it for part 1 of 3 of the TSG build series. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel out a lot. And comment down below if you're going to be doing a TSG build of your own in the near future. Also, if you're looking for a way to help support the channel and also gain something out of it for yourself, I have started a Teespring store, and there are 3 designs currently on there. Two of them are newer, just actually came out yesterday. Very cool. I actually really like them, and I'll be ordering a couple for myself to wear in the videos to kind of show them off for you guys. I won't tell you what they are. You should just go check them out yourself, and if you want to help support the channel, that's a good way of doing it. Again, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever the heck I'm doing. But until then, stay tuned, techs.